Okay, I'm a little bit early, but I'm sure I've just had someone join me and see who this was. Hi, Libby, good to see you here, and Kristen as well. Now, we're going to move through the remainder of these cases. We're over now in Module 4. It's hard to believe we've already 4 weeks into the semester. It's going by quickly. And we had talked about on Monday, we talked about Hewlett. And I think we also maybe took a quick review over looking at the relax case, which is over in pages 155 to 157. And I'm going to pop over there for just a second. And this was a media selection case. This is a company that is a Lake Development Corporation. And I choose it because it deals with media selection, but also reminds me very much of one of my former jobs I had. I was executive director of a gated community out west of St. Louis. We had, basically it was a combination of kind of like being a city manager and a park superintendent, because we had a whole set of, we had 6 lakes and marinas and all that stuff, as well as having our own water department, our own fire department, having our own mail. And so I understand that. And also I was president of the land company, so I was involved in handling all of that as well. So I've enjoyed looking at this case because I understood, the kinds of issues that they run into in trying to sell their lots. Now, the thing about where I was fortunately, everything sold itself. And we have some people who would buy lots that we called fishing lots that weren't very big and weren't very nice. And then we had lots that we sold that went for quite a bit of money for people who are going to build a lakeside home. And there are 2 or 3 gated communities outside of St. Louis. The one we were in had a lot of people retired from Boeing and places like that, and a fairly upscale but not terribly expensive situation. We had our own water system. So I enjoyed seeing this case because it brought back some of the memories of that job, which was an interesting job. All I can say is I learned a lot. But as we walk through, they walk us through there in the case, and we go through looking at the decision variables, okay? And then, of course, as we see right here, we're talking about exposure quality, some measure that says, how well and how often someone hears this, and we want to maximize that, and we have our decision variables, okay? And then we look at the availability of media. That's a constraint. We have a budget constraint. We have constraints there in terms of television restrictions. We have a constraint in terms of the customers that we want to reach. So here what we've done is we've built a mathematical model to deal with this problem. Now, of course, the authors give us a lot more of the details, okay? And here they show you show you the solution for the relax and enjoy lake development problem. And this is using that Lingo, which is that online optimization tool that they have through McGraw-Hill, which I didn't make you buy. It's $150. And we've used Excel instead, but you can see where we can do some cost reduction, okay, and the values that we have, and we can reduce that cost, and then the dual values, and do we have any slack or surplus resources that we can use, okay? And so we see each of these constraints and the dual values. So a constraint of for a change in each one, we can change in each one change or increment in 3 gives us a 16 change in the budget. So we see the advertising plan, okay? All right, and this is just basically a similar expression of what we saw earlier. All right, now we're going to take a look also at another case, and this one moves us into a company, and the Welty case, which starts over on 161. Well, this will walk us all on through some more with marketing research. Let's move over to the Welty. And that starts on page 161. Okay, and this involves developing a portfolio. Now, again, I think what's remarkable is that optimization, okay, as a tool for decision analysis is just incredibly useful. It's so versatile. We can use it with any problem we have. It helps us see the range or types of solutions that or outcomes that we'll get if we follow a particular solution. And in this case, this is involving a mutual fund. So if you're a marketing student, the Relax certainly should be, or you think you're going to be going into media or advertising, certainly be a case that will apply. And if you're a finance major, this is one you really ought to pay attention to, because it shows us some information and walks us through this whole case of putting together a portfolio and using optimization to do so. Now, I want to stop for just a moment, and I want to note some resources that I had for everybody. And I think one of these is the Geography of the Efficient Frontier. We know that with portfolios, that there's what we call an efficient frontier. In other words, a set of possible solutions or possible inputs that get us the kind of return, an optimal return, based on the risk and based on the investment portion. So there's that for you to see, as well as the modern portfolio theory and the efficient frontier. Again, if you're a finance major, do yourself a favor and take a look at that. And here, we've talked about dual values, shadow prices. The dual values, or the shadow prices, it's indicated, is a way of saying, okay, if I take each unit, how much of an improvement do I get, or marginal return or utility do I get in the optimal solution? So here's a situation where we could do this, and we do it to reduce carbon footprint and save some money. And I have a resource here. These additional resources, I don't ever test everybody on them. I just don't, because I feel like at a certain point, I'm going to say to you, if you intend to be a decision maker, if you intend to be a business person that's going to have the ability to navigate the toughest business environment we've ever seen, then these are things you'll go take a look at. Okay, and this is no different if I was teaching art. I would say, well, here's some showings that you should go see. Here's some art you could go look at online to see how people have applied these concepts. And I do this also to reinforce with you the idea that this is just not some gobbledygook that we've dreamed up to make you take. This stuff works. It is for real. And if we're going to make decisions, then we need to make decisions using the best information we can, with an understanding of the limitations that we have, and optimality forces us to that reality. Well, that all being said, also, it was kind of occurred to me again, and I always like to remind all of you, Monday when I went into campus, I had to go and observe an instructor. And it's always amazing to me that I come into campus and I see a lot of students who look very dour and very subdued, and I wonder, okay, have we reinstituted the torture racks that we had under Riley Chapel? Are we sending armed guards to go get you and bring you to class? Many folks who look so unhappy about being at school, and I don't understand that. Okay. And I don't understand it simply probably because it's a generational thing. I was a first-generation college student. And I think the other is just simply the fact that when you take planet Earth, which is filled with 7 billion souls, out of all of those 7 billion souls, and then carve it down to your age cohort, You are some of the luckiest people, if not the luckiest people in the world to get to go to college. I know you hear this, but it's true. I watched a thing last night on PBS, and it was just heart-rending there in Syria, where they can only have school 3 days a week, half a day, because if not, they run the risk of the kids in that school being subjected to gas attacks that are going on over there, or barrel bombs, which is basically just a giant barrel of a material that burns everything it sees. Can you imagine living like that? I just simply cannot. And I had a student several years ago who lived in Bosnia and grew up going to school. And to get to school, he didn't ride a bus. He dodged the snipers. So how lucky we are, how fortunate we are. And I always remind myself also how fortunate I am to get to have the opportunity to share some of the knowledge I've got, to share some of these wonderful and highly applicable concepts. And also to know that someday there will come a time when, I'll make a change in my life and move down the road and do something different. I've been down a lot of roads and ended up back in some places I never thought I would. But how fortunate and how lucky we are, and to have these tools. The interesting thing is that these techniques, optimization, using the goal seek, using a scenario manager, their applications are things that have made the global economy possible, so that in the past 25 years, we've seen more people leave poverty and become affluent than in the whole history of the world. And many of these tools and techniques and concepts that were born in warfare as a way to conduct war, the good Lord has shown us we could take them and apply them to make people's lives better. And that's the marvelous thing about how the Lord works in history, okay? And he gives us these things. The Bible tells us that we are often blessed as a call to repentance. Well, enough of that. But again, we see here as we're looking over here, and we'll pop back over here to the to this. We're looking at this investment portfolio. We talked about this some Monday, okay? And so we build the mathematical model, and we want to maximize, of course, our return, and then we're subject to the following constraints, okay? And away we go. And then, of course, here is the solution. The objective function, or the result we get. And we see here in constraint 3, we've got some slack, with some slack or surplus resources that we can use. And we see that on one of these we can reduce costs. And one, if we add another constraint, will reduce the dual value. That's the shadow price that we'll get. So as the authors mentioned here on 163, it's $8,000, so an 8% return, which is fairly close to historic levels in the equity markets. Okay, and so again, just a kind of a tour de force that the authors take us on, say we can do it for advertising buy, we can do it for building a market portfolio. And then they walk us over to the Janders case, and we'll take a look at it. That starts on page 68. Okay, and they're of course walking us through some more of funds availability of funds. And we start with Janders. Okay, and that's a make or buy decision. One of the challenges that you're going to have as if you're a business owner, or if you occupy a fairly substantial position within somebody's corporation, is the issue of, do we make or buy? There is a law out there called Coase's Law, C-O-A-S-E, Coase, and it was an economist. And what he basically said was that there's friction in organizations. And the amount, and what he meant was that the marginal utility for some activity was below what a company would want or would desire. In other words, it costs more. And Coase's law is one of those ways that we understand and explain the notion of outsourcing. Okay, let's take Oklahoma Baptist University, for example. Do we do outsourcing? Yes, we do. In a couple of our undergraduate courses, but primarily in our graduate programming, we have people who have highly specialized backgrounds, and we hire them as an adjunct to come teach for us. We have a few, I think we also use at the undergraduate level, and it's simply because it's cheaper to pay them to outsource it and pay that adjunct. In my time in the industry of higher education, which is a long time, when I started out, about 80% of the faculty who taught were tenure track or tenured people. Today, it's only about 20. And so a lot of institutions, particularly the ones that are online, use adjuncts. And so they basically have said, I'm going to buy that talent, that expertise, instead of trying to bring the person in, make a full-time employee and all that. And so many institutions, and I could go through some of them, Liberty University certainly, which has 80,000 students online. You have also Grand Canyon University. They claim 80,000. I'm not sure how many they truly have. And other big schools are out there. They hire adjuncts. I was dean of business at an institution that we did that. That was ground-based, and then we started expanding with distance learning. Same thing with another institution I worked at, where I had faculty all over the world. So this issue of make or buy is, again, another one of those classic business problems that we have to try to figure out. And according to Coase's law, if a firm can purchase a service cheaper than it would, then if it just provides it for itself, it will purchase that service. And probably the biggest picture in all of that is outsourcing. Okay, and it's it's just incredible the kinds of things that particularly technology with robotics and artificial intelligence who change things. Well, that being said, we have a make or buy decision, and this is the Janders case. Okay, and it started over here on page 168. All right, and so we have they make calculators, and so we have cost per unit. Okay, and the purchase price, and we have a base model. They have these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different models, and then we say, okay, how many of them are we going to purchase? How many are we going to make? Okay, and they're like a lot of manufacturers who will have branded merchandise that they make, and then they will have purchased merchandise or purchased product that they may assemble it, okay, or they typically assemble it. Apple, for example, when you buy an Apple phone or an Apple product, Apple doesn't make all that stuff. They buy it from their vendors and they assemble it. And they do that assembly is at Foxconn, which is that facility in China, which is the largest manufacturing facility in the entire world. It's unbelievable. So nonetheless, we have some decision variables, and we have a lot of them. Okay. Now I want to take a minute and talk about something here, because the software is there. You can go into the cases and open them up. I really want to talk more about just kind of what's behind all of that. Now, when you look at this number of decision variables, and this is just simply a given, the more decision variables that you have, the greater the range of possible outcomes you're going to get. And when you get a greater range, i.e. number of possible outcomes, that means just simply because of the law of large numbers, you're going to get more opportunities to have something really good happen or something really bad. So this is quite an array. And look, if you think this is complex, let me give you something to chew on. And this will also make you think about the marvels of modern corporations and modern business. The average car has 23,000 parts. 23,000. So, Eric, can you imagine trying to put together, to use solver to deal with that? That's an incredible array of products. And so, it's easy to get stuff wrong. It's to get it overpriced, or it doesn't work, or you can't assemble it. Yeah, and so we've become so accustomed. We have automobiles and we have air flight and all of these things. We walk into a Walmart and it's got 20,000 or 30,000 products on the shelves. These are miracles, okay? These are miracles, and they're gifts from above. The book of James, he says, all good things come from above, okay? But like any gift, we got to be careful that we don't get overwhelmed by it. Well, here we have the manufacturing time in minutes for their components, okay? And these are either industry standards, okay, that other similar manufacturers have recorded, or these are based on historical data from the company. And we begin to build this, and since we're looking at minutes, we're looking at a minimization problem. And then we have 5 demand constraints, okay? And then we have another constraint in terms of overtime. And then here's the complete formulation. And again, a mathematical model. The beauty of the mathematical model is I don't have to go make a base model. I don't have to go make a iconic, in other words, a physical model, okay, for me to know there's a reasonable degree that this will work. Now, a lot of this is changing. In fact, in this situation, they probably, once they've done this step, the next step for them is probably going to go into a CAD/CAM system and use virtual reality tools or augmented reality tools to see how it really looks and works. And that's one of these things where automation and things like artificial intelligence are absolutely changing everything. Automobile manufacturers and airline manufacturers are probably the best because they have so many parts and so many components. It only makes sense for them to do it. Well, nonetheless, they walk through this make or buy decision, and then they give us a solution for that and a minimal solution. And the Janders file. Now there are 3 pieces of work that are due this week, and I'm going to take a look at it for just a minute. Relax, Welty, Janders, those are all over there in the Management Science 13 files, and all you have to do is upload them. That's it. And also leisure, okay? The leisure is a really interesting problem because it deals with the question of it deals with an airline and their problems. Now, Janders, of course, is for those of you who may think you might be or will work in manufacturing environment. Again, those files are over there. And I think I've spoken. You said this just sounds like a broken record. It's just this same tool that works. Optimization, and one of the reasons I'm so excited when I teach this class is because this is like the Swiss Army knife of business. These tools work in just about every type of problem you have because scientific management understands you have an objective function. You want something to achieve. You have decision variables, okay? You have constraints, right? And then you've got to work and go from there. But every decision is like that. Now, the leisure case starts over on page 224 and goes to 224 to 229, okay? And we'll look at this for just a minute. Okay, and here I'm going to ask you to compute the maximum revenue, okay, with these changes in the variables, the leg, the fare, the leg and the fare, okay? Leg 1, see they have these different legs, different fares and demand figures. And I'm just, let's go take a look at it for a minute. In fact, just to kind of make sure that we're in good shape, let's go over to the files, okay? And you say, okay, you're talking about the MS-13. Yeah, we'll go back over here. And here they are, the MS-13 web files. And these first set of files, Relax, Welty, and Janders, those are in chapter 4. Okay? So we want to grab chapter 4, and we'll open that up in the Excel files, and you'll see them. And all you really have to do is just upload them. That way I know you've been here, you've heard this, and you've taken a look at them. And I've gone through the textbook with them, and I don't see the need or feel the need to go back and do a whole lot of rigmarole with them. However, we want to go now over to the chapter 5, because that's where you're going to find the leisure in that file. I'm opening it up, and there's leisure. And you'll see this is a load balancing problem, okay, where we are trying to deal with demands and different levels of fare for different legs of our airline. And then we have all of the capacity and capacity constraints and the demand constraints. Now, again, all right, what I'm going to ask you to do, and I'll go back over here for just a minute, is go back here to module 4. All right. We'll pop down here to module 4. And for this case, all right, I'm going to ask you to compute the maximum revenue by changing these variables. Okay? And so you'll use that leisure, and you could do that. If I were you, I'd do the copy and paste. I have leisure open, Leisure Airlines. I'd paste that in there, probably make it a little bit larger font, and then do the work. Here's leg 1, here's leg 2. Now, I want to go in the textbook to let you, because the authors do a fantastic job of showing us how this is all put together. So let me pop us down, because this will take us over into chapter 5. Okay, and believe this is the revenue management problem. Yeah, and this is dealing with Leisure Airlines. Now, there are some things here I want you to see, and I want to emphasize to you. As you remember back when we started the course, we have mathematical models, okay? We have iconic models, which are, I build a scale model, or I maybe build the whole thing, okay? And then I also have logical models, and this figure 5.4 over on page 225 shows you the logistics of this problem. Note that we have these different flight legs, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And what Leisure Airlines does or is doing is they are feeding flights into Charlotte, okay, and then out of Charlotte down to Orlando or to Myrtle Beach. What they're doing is a small scale version of what we call a hub and spoke routine. And you know that if you fly certain airlines, I think the weirdest experience I ever had was I took Delta. I made the mistake of taking Delta from St. Louis to get out to California to go to San Francisco. Instead of using my brain, I got a cheap ticket, but I didn't realize I was getting up with an 11-hour layover, which I did, and that it was just awful. And instead of just taking a direct flight or paying more. But the whole point is that these flight legs, okay, the first 2 flight legs feed to Charlotte, and then Charlotte kind of collects everybody and then fans them out. So this is a small scale version of what we call the classic hub and spoke approach. Now this is all based on the idea, okay, that we can get economies of scale developed, all right, and then and use that economy of scale to keep down our costs, primarily fixed costs. Airlines have a tremendous battle with fixed costs. As you've heard me say before, the reason you'll see these discounts on airlines is simple. It's going to cost them X amount of dollars to fly from Oklahoma City to Dallas, okay, or back. And if it does, then why fly an empty plane? You might as well just sell tickets to try to recapture some of that fixed cost as opposed to eating all of it, okay? And so airlines are highly sensitive to that issue, okay? Now, as they walk us on down here, you'll see here are the fare and demand data, okay, and for forecasted demand for what they call origin, destination, itinerary fares, the ODIFs. All right. Now, the Sabre system, which was developed by American Airlines, is the one that's still the old predominant system that's out there. And of course, you can go out to different travel sites today and airline sites, and you can look for prices and the best prices, etc., and all that business. So that intermediary, used to be. I remember in my early 20s when I was flying, I'd have to fly somewhere. I'd call Delta, or I'd call American, or call, at that time, Pan Am was in existence. You don't even know who they are. TWA was in existence. Are they still? I can't remember. But you'd call and you'd talk to somebody on a reservation line. You didn't go online and tap the stuff in. So here we see their forecasted demand, all right? And then we begin to see them build the models, okay? And then here we have the maximization statement. And we're using a linear programming model. And then capacity constraints, and then demand constraints. So we're balancing all that, and here in its full glory is the mathematical model. Okay, subject to the constraints for these destinations. And notice it's Pittsburgh to Charlotte, it's Newark to Charlotte, and then it's Charlotte to Myrtle Beach, Charlotte to Orlando. This is a highly specialized, very specialized, what I would call sub-regional airline. And there was an airline here that used to serve Oklahoma and surrounding areas called Ozark Airlines. They ended up getting purchased by, I think, Southwest Airlines purchased them. But Ozark Airlines was a little tiny airline. If you really want to call it that, they'd put you in a I remember flying to Oklahoma City. You'd fly to Oklahoma City, Tulsa, and you'd fly in a four-wing prop that would seat 15 or 20 people, and they had a couple of jet airliners I think for an Oklahoma City to St. Louis leg or something like that. But Ozark, they were what they said. They served that region. But that all being said, here are the demand constraints. And then there's the solution. And then, of course, I want you to take a look at what you get utilizing these changes in resources. Okay? Now, I'd say this also, and this is the figure 5.5 they show you there. That's the optimal value. That's from the book. But look, the thing I would really want to really encourage you with this is these demand figures. Where in the world would they get them? Forecasted demand. The forecasted demand probably is historical data, or it should be. If not, it could be some mixture of historical and simulated data. Again, the beauty of the mathematical model and the ability, even with something Excel, which is not that powerful, but Excel can run you, I don't know what the limit is on the number of simulated runs. You can get a very good approximation of what demand would be. Now, they probably rely on prior sales figures, and who knows, at this small of an operation, the law of large numbers doesn't do you a lot of good. Well, all that being said, okay, I also want to alert you to a resource, because I always want to make sure that you can see that these are problems that are grounded in the real world. And all I can tell you is I have an extreme appreciation for this, okay? I was, I had the, for some reason, I was fortunate to get to see up hand an incredible feat of logistics with 500,000 people and pieces of equipment moved halfway across the world within a month. Incredible feat. It was unbelievable. And again, these are tools that let us achieve these things. These are tools that let us bless people's lives. And so, particularly, as you've heard me say before, the logistics, okay, is an area where there's a lot of opportunity for people. A lot. The more stuff we sell online, the more that the global economy comes online, the more that logistics becomes an extremely, extremely important thing. 90% of everything that's made is manufactured, is shipped via water at some point. But beyond that, then it becomes this incredible constellation or network of carriers and specialized carriers and all those kinds of people. There are tremendous opportunities out there. And think about blessing people's lives. I watched the news the other night, and I saw the OG&E, Oklahoma Gas Electric people, were down in Puerto Rico getting people's power. And I look, here's an OG&E truck in Puerto Rico. Okay, how did they get there? Logistics. And how did OG&E know how many they could spare? They use these tools. You say you're really pumped about this class. Yes, I am, because it holds so much information and knowledge and wisdom that you can use and exploit for yourself. I also want to show you a couple of things. I always like to throw in, there's an exam, of course, it's due over chapter 6. And so you have these things due on the 2nd. And again, you'll have to do the manipulation of the variables on leisure, but these other 3, I'd like you just to upload them. If you want to, play with the variables a little bit and see what you get. I don't care. We've seen them, and we can apply this tool to a variety of problems. I also like to add something that kind of adds, again, one of these things that enhances your learning. This is a link to the electronic spreadsheet. Way before you were born, people came up with the idea of electronic spreadsheet. Before that, it was you did it by hand, or maybe you had a calculator. Okay, uh, trust me. If you've taken your intro to finance course and Dr. Readers had you do internal rate of return on a capital budgeting problem, you will be thanking the good Lord that He invented Excel for us and gave us the IRR. Because if you've done internal rate of return by hand, you know what I'm talking about. It is a messy, nasty, hard business. Now, I also like to throw in some resources here about the history of operations research. Operations research is really the progenitor of all this. You also hear people use the term operations management, and you'll hear me use the term logistics. Logistics is a part of that. Production and manufacturing is a part of that. Really, if you're talking about making and assembling stuff, that's one branch of operations research or operations. Let me put it like this. Operations management, in my opinion, is the umbrella. Operations research is the research component of it. And then I believe then you have production and process, and then you have logistics. Okay, and that operations research would involve things like, okay, we've decided to make a Samsung, this new phone with a new screen. All right, can we make it? Will it work? That's the engineer's problem. And the next question for the manufacturing engineers is, can we make it? And can we make it in a quantity sufficient to sell it at price point in the market to do well? So when somebody rolls out a new phone, there's been a tremendous amount of work. So I think it'd be helpful for you to go take a look at that. I think that when we don't give you a historical perspective on business, we often fail you, okay? And we often kind of leave you disjointed, because business as a discipline is very new, relatively new compared to the other applied sciences or applied disciplines, but it has its own history and some interesting stuff. Here's a spreadsheet on Leisure Airlines and their airports, okay? And this is a PowerPoint. Talks about, this is from a geography course and a PowerPoint that will look at some logistics, and then low-cost airlines and how they've altered the economics of flying. Okay, and they've done so because they took that hub. Southwest Airlines is the progenitor of that, because Southwest said they had two principles when they Herb, the wild turkey. You can guess where he got the moniker Wild Turkey. Kelleher said, I'm going to create an airline. And I'm going to make an airline that flies only from point A to point B. There will be no hubs. And I'm going to price the tickets such that I will equal the price it would cost somebody to get in their car and fly and drive there. And then his third principle was, flying is an experience. Okay, and so if you've ridden on Southwest, you know you'll get. I guess they still do it. I would assume they probably do. I haven't flown Southwest in a while, but the flight attendants, they'd sing, they'd tell jokes, they'd do crazy stuff. If it was a holiday, they'd come dressed up in costumes. This was to promote an experience kind of thing. Okay, I remember one time I flew on Southwest into Las Vegas. And I didn't go to gamble. I went for a conference, but the flight attendants brought out a giant pair of dice, okay, and they would have and they'd have customers throw each die down, and if you hit 7s or 11s, you'd get a coupon for a discount for your next flight, or if you'd get a snake eyes, they'd give you a free drink, and it was crazy. But everybody's laughing and having a great time. I'm thinking they really are creating an experience here. Now, interestingly, the Southwest purchased an airline that used to exist before it, and it was an airline called Braniff. that flew during the 1960s. And Braniff had two distinctive things. One, they had a rather suggestive commercial involving flight attendants, which today would not even make it. So times have changed, thank God. But the other was each plane, they had a different color. And if you flew all colors of the plane, or a certain number of them, they'd give you a free ticket to anywhere they flew. So it was a big thing. Okay, I flew the dark blue in this week. They had a dark blue. They had a Kelly green. They had red. They had a burnt orange plane. They had pink. They had white. I don't know how many different colors they had. But Braniff and many of their employees went over to Southwest because Braniff was one of those airlines. Again, it's kind of a fun, off the beaten place. I'd say this about Southwest also. They were one of the early pioneers in using social media with their business, and they're very astute at doing that. Well, all that being said, I have some resources there for you to take a look at, and then we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the case next week. We'll talk about leisure, and I'll go ahead and alert you to some things as well. We'll do a little bit of work next week at looking at using the Easy Map Maker to kind of look at where leisure destinations. Here's a 737-400 airliner. Link to that so you can see it. And I've got also some information about seating secrets and how airlines decide. So you'll want to take a look at those, or we'll look at them next week. But the leisure case is very, very, very interesting, and that's the one where you'll do the manipulation of the variables. Well, all of that being said, I think we've come to the point now where I'm hopeful that I've made the case that this is one of the most important courses you're going to take while you're here. And if you don't really try to absorb this, you're going to lose a lot. This course is about decision making and a scientific approach to decision making. And that doesn't mean anything hoity-toity or we're over the lab with our light coats and gloves. That means a very practical but very disciplined way in looking at how we make decisions. And so when you see that, and then you see the environment in which you live today, in which everything in many ways is so, competition is really based on analytics and based on your ability to maintain customer intimacy and customer relationships and all this stuff of big data, the cloud, and all of these tools, things like all of the locational devices out there. And that's one of the reasons I've gone back and done some work. I'm taking a course in cartography right now to go back and learn about geographic. The tools are out there for geographic and locational analysis. It's just simply this is the progenitor of those things. And if you get this, and if you see this, if you incorporate this as how you should make decisions, then you're a long way ahead, because optimization ultimately says, okay, what range of possible outcomes do I have? What's the best decision I can make based on the resources I have and my objectives? Okay, and that's decision making, and that's good decision making. Pardon me, in a nutshell. Okay, so that's what we're really doing here. Now, there will be some of you who will say, I'm interested in this, and let me encourage you. When you finish school, go out and look for a logistics company and apply. See if you get hired on. I think many of you will be surprised at that type of thing. And again, we talk about the global economy. We talk about, using business as a mission. And certainly, when we make people's lives better, let me say this. A person whose stomach is half full is going to hear a whole lot more of the gospel than they're going to hear if their stomach is empty. God blesses us to call us to repentance. And one of the things that we see, and right now, if you look in the world, where is the greatest expansion of Christianity? It's in Asia. It's in Asia for a simple reason. The people in Asia, particularly those that live along the coasts and in South Korea, I marveled at watching South Korea. The ending ceremony where they had all those drones making those shapes absolutely blew me away. Samsung said, hey, we're all about technology. We're going to show you how good we are. They are. When people come to a point when their basic needs are supplied, when they come to a point where they've accumulated some wealth, they begin to ask themselves, well, what else is there to life? What meaning or purpose is there? Or is it just the person with the person who owns the most toys when they die wins? So we're seeing that expansion there, because as those people say, I have a home, I have a car, or I have good transportation, I have a good job, I'm part of the modern world, I have decent health care. What more is there to life than this? Those are people whose hearts are really open to hear. Okay? And so that's been I think business has been that virus. Business has been that little germ that carries the virus called the gospel that's over there. And by, I think it's 2040, there will be more Christians in China than in the United States. I think than in the United States and Europe combined. That's a startling thing. When I think back to when I was your age, the number of Christians in China was probably on the order of maybe 10,000 people. Well, so there's a lot of meat here for you. And I look forward to seeing you next week. I appreciate those of you who came, and I hope those who watch will take to heart some of these things. And don't forget, you got these 3 to upload, really these 4 cases to upload, and then the leisure's the one you do a little manipulation. And then you got chapter 6. I've got some resources there for you to see. God bless you, folks. Have a great day. And thank you for being here. And for those of you who will watch it later, you as well. It's always wonderful to be with you. I want you to know, I know how hard you work. I know you juggle a lot of stuff. And I know I'm not the only course in town that you have to take. I understand that. But I can guarantee you, I wouldn't teach this course and be enthusiastic about it if there was not so much wisdom and value in it for you, and so that you can go out and be a difference maker for people in their lives. Thanks a lot. Take care. I'm going to stop the share now and stop the recording, and we'll go for that. And I will see you guys in class next Monday.